The soft glow of the setting sun flooded through the window, casting long shadows in our small dining room. I glanced over at my mother, sitting stiffly at the table, her hands wrapped around a chipped coffee mug. In this cozy room that had seen better days, the air felt thick with the burden of years gone by, the weight of our struggles. My eyes darted to the worn-out couch in the corner. The fabric faded from countless sit-downs where we shared our dreams, hopes, and sometimes our tears. Every year, the holidays felt like a tightrope walk between acknowledgement and denial. Over the years, I had learned to balance carefully on that wire, even if it meant dancing around the truth, which was simply too painful to confront. Smells of roasted turkey wafted in from the kitchen, blending with the scent of the pumpkin pie that my mother had baked tirelessly in the early morning hours. I could almost hear the echo of her preparations, the pans clanging, the oven humming, and her soft humming of an old tune that I could never quite catch. Today, though, she seemed so far away, lost in the task of ensuring everything was perfect. She wore her best holiday sweater, its colors muted and washed out, struggling to match the spirit of the season. Just as we arranged ourselves around the table, the door swung open and in walked my uncle, a wave of energy blasting in with him. He carried an aromatic bottle of wine like it was the Holy Grail, grinning as if he had just conquered the world. "You will not believe the deal I got on this beauty," he exclaimed, leaning over the table like he was sharing a grand secret. "I paid half for this bottle, and trust me, it is the best you will ever taste. You won't find it in any store." His animated demeanor was contagious, but as much as I tried to force a smile, I felt my stomach twist painfully. It did not take much to recall the stories he told of his lavish vacations, his trips to tropical paradises, while we struggled to pay the rent. I could see the glimmer in his eyes, a flash of greed and satisfaction with every mention of wealth, and that hollow ache inside me grew. My uncle had made a career out of manipulating our family dynamics, deftly swaying our emotions while conveniently ignoring the sacrifices my mother made daily. I could hardly breathe when I recalled the long nights she spent stocking shelves in grocery stores, her tired hands still managing to support me through college. "Nice sweater, Mia," he said, oblivious to the simmering tension in the room. His callousness made me want to roll my eyes. It was like he was completely unaware of the emotional battleground that lay hidden beneath the polite laughter around the table. "I can tell you got that at a discount." He laughed, the kind of laugh that carried nothing but self-satisfaction, and I felt the burning heat rise in me. Who did he think he was? "Thanks, Uncle," I replied, forcing a tight-lipped smile, wishing I could muster a more genuine response. I could see my mother squeezing her eyes shut for a brief second. I caught her mouth twitching as if she wanted to retaliate against his teasing. But she held back. She always did, choosing the high road where I always found myself playing the villain. Soon, my uncle launched into tales of his recent yacht trip, embellishing stories of how he effortlessly charmed the captain and wooed the seagulls. My mother offered a faint smile, hiding her discomfort behind the cloudy glass of her mug, but I could see the faintest ripple of pain across her face. It was as if she was wearing a smile that weighed more than her heart could bear. I turned my attention away, focusing on the food: golden brown turkey, creamy mashed potatoes, vivid green beans, each one a reminder of the meals that came to life from her hands despite our struggles. The table was set as a feast, yet all I felt was an overwhelming sense of resentment. "Speaking of investments," my uncle continued nonchalantly, "Mia, I need another favor from your mother. I've got a fantastic opportunity lined up, and I thought of her when I saw it." He didn't give her time to respond. "I need $50,000 for this real estate venture, and I know it's a lot, but it will be worth it. Just think, a little family support can go a long way here." At that precise moment, the air shifted like a thunderstorm brewing. My heart raced, and it wasn't from the delicious smells of the meal. I could see the tension brimming over in my mother's eyes, her lips pursed tightly, as if trying to hold back a torrent of tears or rage. "I don't think," she started, but the firmness in her voice wavered like a frail leaf in a gust of wind. "Come on, it's a simple transaction," he interjected, dismissing her hesitations with a wave of his hand. "I'll pay her back faster than you can say luxury beach house." The arrogance in his statement was infuriating. How could he still manipulate her like this? Couldn't he see how much strain she was already under? I felt heat coursing through my veins. "Are you serious?" I blurted, adrenaline momentarily giving me a surge of bravery. The room went quiet, and for the first time, all eyes turned toward me. You think it is okay to ask her for more money? Uncle, do you have any idea how much she already sacrifices for you? Each word stabbed with an intensity I hadn't intended, but the anger had erupted beyond my control. The tension became almost tangible, curling around us like a thick smoke. My mother's eyes flashed with fear, fear of conflict, fear of disruption. Mia, please, she murmured, swallowing hard, her voice almost imperceptible over my growing indignation. No, I fired back sharply. I won't let him keep treating you like this. You do not have another 50,000 to spare. Why do you keep letting him walk all over you? I saw my uncle's brows knit together, confusion morphing into wounded pride, but I cared little for his feelings at that moment. He's family, and we owe him, Mia. My mother's voice quivered, her hands trembling slightly by the mug that had been her shield and comfort. I told him I couldn't this time, didn't I? No, you didn't, because you never say no. A flame ignited within me, each word spilling out as if they had been pent up inside for years. I could see the way my mother's eyes looked into mine, pleading for me to stop, for me to listen. But how could I? Each breath drew in more of my uncle's arrogance and our shared history, a history defined by her silent sacrifices while he reveled in excess. Enough, my uncle said, slamming his hands onto the table, rattling the dishes. Who do you think you are? You need to show some respect. Respect? For what? For the way you treat her like a bank, I shot back, the bitterness thick like molasses. You seem to have forgotten that she worked hard for everything she has while you bled this family dry. Mia. My mother interjected sharply, her voice cutting through. The surprise in her tone stopped me short. She looked between me and my uncle as if caught in the crossfire of a battle she had never intended to wage. This isn't the time or the place. I am done with this family dynamic where you keep taking advantage of her kindness. I could feel my hands balling into fists and my knuckles turned white. You act as if money just falls out of the sky for us. What do you know about struggle? A tension hung in the air, crackling like static electricity. The uncertain silence emphasized the clashing emotions around the table. I felt my heart rate pound in my ears like a war drum as my uncle crossed his arms, clearly taken aback. Then my mother spoke softly, her voice trembling. I am not lending you anything. Her gaze fell to the table, unwilling to meet anyone's eyes. In that moment, I saw a flicker of resilience flash across her features that hadn't been there before. For all the times she had swallowed her pride for family, a small part of her had dug deep to finally fight back against his insistence. It was a turning point, a sharp pivot that brought hope amid the storm. The realization wasn't just about money, but about strength, recognizing when enough was enough. Good, I said softly, feeling a mixture of relief and pride for my mother. You deserve so much more than his demands. Then I guess we need to rethink our family's priorities, my uncle said coldly, standing up and straightening his shirt, the facade of joviality cracking as he glared at us both. There will be a reckoning for this. Go ahead, I shot back, every bit of him infuriating me. You have taken so much from us, it is time someone stands up to you. With that, he turned on his heel and walked out, his footsteps echoing against the wooden floor with a finality I felt reverberate through me. I had never stood up like that, never opened my mouth to share the truth that had been burning inside. But today, the words came rushing out, fueled by years of witnessing unfairness, of observing kindness taken for granted. As the door slammed shut and the residue of his arrogance remained in the room, I turned to my mother. She looked at me with wide eyes, her expression a mix of fear and admiration. My heart softened. I am so sorry, Mom. I just couldn't let him do this again. One lone tear slipped from her eye, glistening like a raindrop, as she reached out and enveloped me in a tight hug. Thank you, she whispered, and I could feel the warmth of her relief flow through me, melting away the bitterness that still lingered. I had ignited a fire within her, a flicker of hope in a long battle of weariness. But a battle it was, one that would continue long after this moment of victory. And I knew then that this would not be the end of our struggle. It was simply a beginning. A declaration against the weight of the struggle in the quiet shadows of my dimly lit room. The glow of my laptop screen illuminated my face, casting an eerie light over the pages filled with the lives my uncle had spun into a web of deceit. Every keystroke felt like a heartbeat, rapid and pounding, as I stared at the blinking cursor, a moment of reckoning, a crossroads of morals and revenge. I had made my decision, the evidence needed to be gathered, and the truth unveiled. Every day was a juggling act, balancing the mundane responsibilities of life while constantly sneaking around my uncle's charade. I carefully crafted my observations into meticulous notes, keeping track of the lavish trips to tropical beaches that my mother would never see. Hawaii this month, Bali next, I had scribbled in my notebook, a collection of the locations that lined his Instagram, each post screaming excess. The way he posed in front of penthouses, luxury sports cars, and crystal-clear oceans made my stomach churn. There he was, draped in designer clothes, displaying a life of nonchalance and carefreeness. Meanwhile, Mom was holed up at home, stretching the same $20 bills until they were almost translucent just to keep the lights on. The emotional pull was akin to a vice tightening around my heart whenever I witnessed how my uncle manipulated and belittled my mother. His voice would rasp through the air during family gatherings, snide remarks disguised as jokes. "Martha, darling, I wouldn't expect you to understand high finance. Isn't that right, family?" Everyone would chuckle lightly, the kind of laughter that felt obligatory, even toxic. And her eyes, my mother's eyes, would dim, shadowed by the weight of embarrassment and shame, her attempts at smiles seeming just a tad too forced, like petals attempting to flourish under a storm. I wished she could see through the facade, the truth wrapped in silken lies. "It's only my uncle being my uncle," I heard her say time and again, dismissing my dismissals of his behavior. "He's only looking out for me." That belief kept her tethered to him, and I hated it, while at the same time my heart broke just a little more at her unwavering loyalty to a man who had crawled into our lives, disguising exploitation as family. One night, as the storm rattled our windows, I felt the weight of the decision pressing heavily on me. Thunder clawed at the sky, rumbling like the anxiety in my chest. I could sense the tension coiling around my thoughts, like the vines creeping up the side of the old shack we called home, demanding to be severed. "What if I fail?" I whispered to the empty room, cringing as the words slipped into the silence. "What if this only makes things worse?" I couldn't afford to think that way, but it was hard to suppress doubt when it sat alongside me, chatting about possibilities like an unwanted guest. Later that evening, as the rain drizzled gently against the window, a flash of inspiration sparked within me like the lightning illuminating the roiling clouds outside. The information I needed was right there, just a few clicks away. My uncle's name gleamed brightly in my mind like a glaring neon sign, and as if possessed, I opened countless tabs, digging deeper and deeper into the facade he had created. "Look at this extravagant lifestyle," I muttered under my breath as I pieced together the evidence, each revelation a shard of glass cutting deep into my heart. The bank statements, the receipts for lavish vacations and purchases, they piled up like confetti at a parade, beautiful on the surface but made of hidden pain. I gathered screenshots with growing fervor, each one bringing me closer to the truth I longed to expose. "There it is, a $10,000 bill for a yacht rental," I gasped aloud, my voice barely audible over the rain's rhythmic drumming. "And he convinced her he was investing in his own company." I faced the screen with determination, my fingers flying over the keyboard. "Mom believes in him. She trusts him." Every keystroke was like pulling a thread on a tapestry, revealing the ugly truth behind the beautiful facade he had woven. I imagined him dressed in that crisp, designer suit, standing confidently with my mother as if all was well. But in my mind's eye, I saw the reality lurking beneath, the deceit and exploitation, all fueled by a sense of superiority that made my blood boil. "What an act!" I spat, clenching my fists. My heart raced as I recalled the times I had seen him ignore her, how readily he would push her to the side whenever they spoke. Lines like, "Oh, come now, not you again," subtly belittled her contribution and everything she believed to be true. A few hours went by, and the storm finally began to subside, leaving a curtain of silence draped across the house. As I took a deep breath, feeling the electric focus shift to my next step, a surge of fear clawed its way up my spine, reminding me of the risks involved. What if I crossed the line too far? What if this anonymous tip sent him spiraling into destruction, dragging my mother down with him? "Deep breath, Mia," I murmured to myself like a mantra. "She deserves better." I couldn't let fear immobilize me any longer. I had so much to lose, yet so much to gain. If exposing him meant bringing to light the truth he tried so desperately to conceal, then perhaps it would also allow my mother to experience a life free from manipulation. I couldn't shake the exhilarating thrill that washed through me, drowning out the whispers of caution lurking in my mind. The very thought of my uncle shattering into pieces was enticing. The image struck me like an artist viewing a finished masterpiece. That night I crafted my letter carefully, my heart pounding as the words flowed onto the screen, detailing his discrepancies with precision. It transformed into an artful composition, revealing the gap between his claims and coerced lifestyle choices. "Please closely investigate," I typed, pausing to consider my next words. "A family deserves the truth, and a mother deserves better." With the weight of the moment bearing down on me, I closed my eyes for just a heartbeat, collecting myself. I imagined the repercussions, the guilt that might cling to my shoulders should he retaliate. Would he turn his anger toward my mother? Would she feel the wider consequences of my actions? But no, I had to stay true to my resolve. With a quick inhale, I hit send. The click echoed through the room like the sound of a gun firing, resonating within my very core. I felt several emotions clashing at once: relief, adrenaline, fear, the aftermath of an irreversible choice echoing through my thoughts. I had done it. I did it! Those 3 words reverberated in my mind, yet they failed to settle my racing heart. I sat and waited in a silence so heavy it became almost unbearably claustrophobic. The rain had fully stopped, yet the tension remained thick, weighing down the air like an oppressive fog. "What now?" I whispered into the void, my voice almost hoarse. I wanted to believe it was finally over, that I had freed us both from his grasp, but uncertainty came flooding back, draping a cold blanket over my spine. My fears festered inside me for days, the anxiety bubbling like soda in a shaken bottle, threatening to burst forth at any moment. And each family dinner became a test of patience, the awkwardness growing palpable as we all sat around the table. I would glance at my mother each time he called. "Let's go ahead and discuss real investments," clenching my fists, every word laced with the same manipulative charm I now despised. I couldn't stay silent forever. I wanted to turn to her, take her hands in mine, and say, "This isn't right. He's not who you think he is." But would she listen? The answer danced on the tip of my tongue, a whisper swallowed by hesitation, knowing she still craved that familial bond far too much. "Why not just confront him, Mia?" echoed in my mind, but I knew the answer deep down. Confrontation would only elevate his arrogance, his manipulation, and it would shred any bond left between my mother and me. And so, I sat silently, sipping my tea while savoring the sweet drop of anticipation, waiting for the moment my uncle's illusion would unravel. I could only hope I had not only set the wheels in motion for his ultimate disgrace, but also paved a path toward a brighter future for my mother. The gamble had been made, and now it was time to brace myself for the aftermath. The days after that Thanksgiving dinner dragged on like molasses. Each morning, I would awaken to a gnawing sense of anticipation stirring in my gut, like 1,000 tiny butterflies eager to take flight. I was all too aware that the intricate web of my uncle's deception was slowly unraveling, but the thought of what lay just beyond the horizon, his potential downfall, filled me with a mix of anxiety and exhilaration. I had become a spectator to my own drama, watching from the sidelines as my uncle continued to lap up the praise and adoration from the family that he bled dry. Each familial gathering felt like a performance he was putting on, with the world's greatest showman acting the part of a benevolent relative, while I simmered with rage and longing for justice. The chilling winds of winter swept through Silverwood, a town wrapped in a comforting, silvery hush as the holidays approached. The trees were bare and skeletal, and the ground was dusted with frost that sparkled like shards of broken glass in the early morning sun. It all felt so wrong. I spent my days going through the motions. My job felt void, my thoughts far away, haunted by images of my mother's face during that Thanksgiving dinner as she placed the pie before my uncle, his smug grin widening like the Cheshire Cat's. Those moments replayed in my mind like a broken record, the laughter, the clinking of silverware, the cloying scent of cinnamon, and my mother's downcast eyes filled with a sadness I recognized too well. She put on a brave face, but I could see the tremor in her smile and the fatigue in her eyes. I can still remember how she had practically floated into the kitchen that day, wearing her favorite Christmas apron, the one with the candy canes printed in bright reds and greens. "Help me with the pie, darling," she had called cheerfully, oblivious to my dark thoughts. But inside, I was screaming. "Why do you do this, Mom? Why do you still put him above yourself?" Just a little more sugar, sweetie." "Think you can handle that?" she had said, a hint of worry in her warm voice. I poured the sugar, watching it cascade into the mixing bowl, feeling its weight like an anchor dragging me further down into despair. It was never just pie for him. It was a symbol of his suffocating presence in our lives. But my mother only wanted to keep the peace, as always, even if it meant sacrificing a bit more of herself. Thanksgiving turned into a blur, a concoction of turkeys, laughter, and my uncle's insufferable tales of success that seemed to grow taller with every retelling. As the dinner wound down, he had pulled out his newest gadget, a fancy watch that he claimed was worth thousands, just another golden feather in his cap of hollow achievements. "You see, Mia, this is what happens when you work hard and make the right connections. I'm telling you, the secret is simply knowing the right people," he had exclaimed, his voice booming as he waved his wrist in front of me, the watch glimmering like a trophy of deceit. I had wanted to hurl the expensive timepiece out the nearest window, shattering it against the pavement just like the lives he had shattered in the process of his financial escapades. My mother had been quiet at the table, her hands clasped together in her lap, as though she were praying for a miracle. My heart ached for her, a dull pulse of resentment toward him brewing like a storm inside me. When the call came from the IRS, I wasn't sure what reaction I might have. In a rare moment, I had settled into the couch with a bag of chips for a quiet evening, the television flickering in the background. Just as I was about to dive into some mind-numbing reality show, my phone buzzed with a number I didn't recognize. My heart raced as I picked it up. "Hello," I answered, my voice a blend of trepidation and intrigue. "Is this Mia Carter?" a stern voice replied. "Yes, it is," I said cautiously, my pulse quickening. "I am calling from the Internal Revenue Service. We have reason to believe that your uncle is involved in certain financial activities that warrant an investigation," the voice continued, each word bringing forth a rush of adrenaline. I sat upright, gripping the phone tightly as I felt that familiar thrill of satisfaction coursing through my veins. "An investigation," I repeated, barely able to contain my glee. "What kind of activities?" "There are allegations regarding tax evasion and potential fraud," he explained. "We are acting on an anonymous tip, and you can be assured that this matter is being treated with the utmost seriousness." My breath hitched in my throat, a wave of sweet euphoria washing over me. It felt like the world stood still for just a moment, and I could hear my heart thumping in my ears as a grin broke across my face. "Thank you for letting me know," I managed to say, trying to sound composed while a torrent of laughter bubbled just beneath the surface. "Of course. We may need to contact you again as the investigation proceeds," he said before hanging up. In that moment, I felt alive. A spark ignited in the pit of my stomach. The satisfaction of knowing that his fortress of lies was now under siege left me buzzing with excitement. He had no idea what lay ahead. It was as if the universe had aligned perfectly, and I had become a puppeteer, orchestrating the downfall of someone who had made my mother's life so miserable. I just had to play my cards right, and fate had already dealt me some excellent ones. As the next few days rolled on, I could hardly contain my glee. I found myself peering at my uncle's Facebook posts, savoring each success he relished, longing for the moment when that success would come crashing down like a house of cards. He posted pictures of himself at lavish parties, surrounded by well-dressed friends, holding champagne flutes aloft with smugness radiating off him. "Living my best life," he wrote, and I could only stare, chuckling at that delusion. How much longer could he keep this facade alive? It was 1 week later when I saw him at the grocery store. The fluorescent lights buzzed softly, the scent of produce hanging in the air. My heart raced as I spotted him down the cereal aisle, his cart full of organic foods that no doubt cost him an arm and a leg. It was almost comical, him pretending to be something he was not while I lurked in the shadows, feeling like a predator preparing to pounce. He was talking to a young cashier, laughing in that way he always did, like a wolf amongst the sheep, exuding charm and confidence. "You know, sweetheart, these calories won't count if you're enjoying life," I heard him say, and the sickening sweetness of his voice made bile rise in my throat. Clenching my fist, I took a deep breath, tempering the urge to confront him. Instead, I could only watch as I imagined the souring taste of panic when the IRS would show up at his doorstep to pull the rug out from under him. How glorious it would be when his ego would face the harsh sunlight of truth. The days dragged on, each one filled with increasing tension, until the moment came when he would learn about the investigation. My phone buzzed in my pocket during one of those mundane afternoons when I was at the cafe down the street, sipping a chamomile tea. I answered, half expecting another announcement from the IRS. His voice, sweet and venomous, crackled through the line. "Mia, we need to talk." "Is that so?" I replied, feigning innocence, allowing a familiar smirk to creep across my face. "It's about the investigation," he started, his tone switching to an urgent pitch. I felt the old rage bubbling beneath the surface, a simmering volcano ready to erupt. I could almost see myself standing on the edge of that cliff, looking down at the ruins of my uncle's reality, and I loved every second of it. "Maybe you should consider what might come next. You seemed so proud of your success at Thanksgiving. How's that feeling now?" I mocked, my heart pounding with exhilaration. "I don't know what you mean," he deflected, his voice strained, now tinged with panic. "Come on, Uncle. Surely you heard the whispers of doubt around town." I pressed, my words laced with pure venom. "Play games with me. You don't want to get involved in this," he warned, his tone darkening. "Oh, but I think I do," I said, biting back my laughter. "Just remember who gave you the life you have, who has the power," he muttered, but something about his voice seemed to crack, the bravado slipping. "I can assure you, Uncle, the power is shifting," I whispered, savoring each word as if they were a rich chocolate melting on my tongue. The line went dead, and in that silence I felt a calm wash over me, the armor of rage that had protected me slowly shedding like old skin. This was inevitable. This was destiny. No longer would I be the victim. My hands were stained with the satisfaction of the journey toward justice, and I relished every moment. And from that moment onward, every fleeting second felt like I was lurking in the wings of my own twisted play, waiting for the final act to unfold as the curtain of lies slowly parted, exposing the truth that would bring my uncle to his knees. Days turned into weeks, stretching my anticipation like the thin string of a bow, ready to snap. The investigation unfolded like a slow, dramatic play, each act revealing more than I could have ever hoped for. News of my uncle's tax evasion spread like wildfire across family grapevines, trickling through calls and whispered conversations during gatherings that once revolved around his displays of wealth. I had documented every deceitful maneuver, each financial sleight of hand that he had employed to keep us all in the shadows, while he basked in the glow of his ill-gotten gains. The day the IRS confronted him was one I replayed in my mind like a thrill-seeker, replaying a daring ride at an amusement park. I remember that day vividly, the crisp air filled with the scent of fresh cut grass and the soft sounds of afternoon chatter from the neighbors that surrounded his opulent estate. Our family had gathered under the pretense of celebrating my uncle's latest purchase, a flashy sports car that seemed to mock our honest lives with its polished veneer. As my mother and I stepped out of the car, I caught a glimpse of his extravagant world. The sprawling driveway led to a facade that belonged in a magazine, not in our family. It was infused with a sense of wickedness. Every extravagant decoration was a price tag that masked his deceit. "Look at that beauty," my uncle beamed, his pride blinding him to the impending doom. But my heart raced for a different reason. I had planted the seeds of his downfall, and soon those withering roots would surface, dragging him down into the very depths of his own greed. Little did he know I possessed every piece of evidence, the receipts, the emails, the transactions that detailed how he'd cheated the system. As I leaned against the car, feigning admiration, I watched him speak animatedly to our relatives, rolling his eyes occasionally when they expressed their admiration. "This was a steal. Can you believe the price?" He laughed, oblivious to the gathering storm. My mother, once silenced by his dominance, stood beside me, quiet but resolute. She had been a mere shadow in his world, a prop to enhance his story, but now the script was flipping. Then the IRS arrived. I had been waiting for this moment, praying for the day justice would knock on his door. Two agents, stern and focused, emerged from their car. Their presence cut through the summer air like an unexpected winter chill. Their serious expressions sent a ripple of confusion through the crowd. "What is this?" my uncle stammered, swiftly lowering his smug facade. "I think there has been a misunderstanding." I stayed quiet, every nerve in my body tingling with anticipation. "You have been audited for a potential tax evasion," one of the agents stated, flipping through a folder I could only assume was filled with my meticulous documentation. I felt a rush. Each page they rifled through was a piece of my triumph, the bricks of the wall I had built around him crumbling away with every turn. My uncle's face paled, the rich color of his bravado washing away like paint stripped from an old wall. "This is absurd. My accounts are all in order. You must have the wrong person." "You are Mr. Johnson, correct?" the other agent replied without even looking up. "Our records illustrate otherwise." The tension strangled the laughter from the air, replacing it with a heavy silence. My heart thrummed wildly as we all waited, my uncle's facade cracking deeper with every passing second. "Family, please, this is all a mistake," he shouted, casting frantic glances around the room, trying desperately to find allies in this sea of uncertainty. "You all know me, I've been there for all of you." I stepped forward, my voice steady. "But at what cost? How much have you taken from us, Uncle?" Each word dripped with disbelief and an anger that tightened my chest. "We're always the family you used to show off to your friends. Where's the wealth coming from? Do you think we're blind?" His eyes darted between my mother and me, searching for any signs of weakness, but now we were like a fortress. "I have always supported this family," he countered, a hint of desperation creeping into his tone. "No," my mother took a step, and the quiet strength in her voice startled him. "You have exploited us, used our trust to build an empire while leaving us in the dust." The surrounding whispers intensified, a chorus of realization sweeping through the family. A cousin leaned in next to me, their mouth agape in shock, while another exchanged silent glances that reflected disbelief and growing anger. As my uncle's bravado disintegrated, his need to manipulate the narrative faded. Weeks went by. Each day, I inhaled the intoxicating scent of success mingled with the bittersweet perfume of justice as his lavish lifestyle began to unravel. I knew that he was facing fines. Estimates suggested upwards of $30,000. That sum was not just a number, but a cascade of consequences, each dollar representing a lie, a betrayal, a family member silenced. Instead of wallowing in denial, my mother rose like a phoenix from the ashes of his reign. I watched her reclaim the respect that had been stripped from her for so long. In family gatherings, she began to speak more assertively, sharing stories of hard work and determination, tales I had heard echoed within the walls of our modest home. "Do you remember when we had to save every penny for the smallest of things?" she asked our relatives during one of the many gatherings that now felt charged with a new energy. "Times when I had to work 2 jobs just to make sure you all had what you needed." Her voice, steady and unwavering, rekindled an awareness in the hearts of our family members. They began to see the disparity, how he had clad himself in luxury at their expense. Each story she shared became a reminder of his sabotage, the price we had unconsciously paid for his arrogance. "Your brother has blood on his hands," she said one day at a family gathering. "Not just money, he's taken our dignity." I stood beside her, my own heart swelling with pride as she pointed out how he had overshadowed everyone. The attention was finally shifting, focusing more on those like her who had not succumbed to embracing his toxic lifestyle, but who had instead worked hard despite adversity and strain. I could feel the winds shifting, the tides of sympathy turning toward her. "People, listen to her," a cousin finally piped up, rays of understanding flooding her expression. "We've been blinded by all of his lies. All those gifts, parties, they were just smoke and mirrors." The family began exchanging glances, conversations laced with introspection. I watched my uncle, who had once commanded the room, sink lower in his chair, simmering in disbelief as if all the air had left him. The power he held over us began to dissolve like sugar in water, leaving behind a bitter aftertaste that he could not wash away. As he fell from grace, I reveled in this newfound reality. The intoxicating satisfaction bubbled in my chest. It was not merely about punishing him. It was about freeing us from his shadow. Every interaction he had, every lie he spun, was now met with skepticism where there once had been admiration. It felt like watching a balloon deflate slowly, the joy of the party fading until only the sad remnants of what was once there remained. But that was not the worst part. The worst part was the desperate attempts he made, trying to rally the family back under his splintering banner. At one gathering, he cornered my mother in the kitchen, a fledgling attempt to manipulate her with false kindness. "You know how these bureaucrats can be, right? They're just out to get me. You need to help me explain this. Stop aligning yourself with them," he urged, his eyes reflecting a mixture of pleading and anger. "No," she replied firmly, her steel resolve stunning him into silence. "You've taken too much from us. This time we will not be silent." Watching her, I was overcome with a sense of pride and vindication. The justice I had envisioned was taking hold, not just for my mother, but for everyone he had overshadowed for years. The more he struggled, grasping for a life that was slipping through his fingers like sand, the more she flourished, her spirit igniting a fire in those around her, their eyes opening to the truth he had buried through deception. It wasn't simply about acquiring justice. It was about rewriting the family narrative. And I couldn't help but feel that sweet taste of revenge coursing through me. I can still see it, the light in my mother's eyes sparkling like a freshly unwrapped gift, vibrant and full of life. It was a kind of laughter that echoed throughout the house, bubbling up like a brook flowing with crystal clear water. There we were in the kitchen, an ordinary room transformed into our sacred space where we were peeling potatoes for dinner, but it felt anything but ordinary. The air was warm, filled with the comforting sense of roasting meat and herbs. This was home, our home, a place I thought we might never reclaim. "Did you remember to wash the potatoes?" "I swear they were a bit dirtier this time," she teased, her tone light, a softness I had longed to hear. I laughed in return, the sound of it surprising even me. "Maybe I wanted to add some extra flavor," I joked, my heart swelling as I watched her smile widen. A year ago, this kitchen had felt claustrophobic with tension. My uncle had suffocated us with his arrogance and manipulation, but not anymore. The table stood proudly in the center, its oak surface polished and gleaming, reminiscent of the warm memories I had of family gatherings that once felt like distant dreams due to his overbearing presence. "You know," my mother spoke between chopping onions, "it feels nice to finally enjoy these moments. I don't remember the last time I spent a Saturday evening like this." Her voice was light, but laced with a hint of disbelief. It was as if she was still acclimating to the idea of being free, finding joy where there used to be dread. "I guess it took some time to clear the air," I replied, my heart echoing her sentiment. The transformation of our family dynamics felt like turning the pages of a new chapter I had always wished to read. My uncle was no longer the family hero. When the truth unraveled, it was like watching a carefully constructed sandcastle gradually collapse, revealing the rot beneath. I could still hear my uncle's sharp voice echoing in the distance, a mocking wind to my mother's newfound laughter. A slight shiver ran down my spine at the thought of him, but I pushed it away. "Did you see that look on his face when everything came crashing down?" I questioned, unable to hide the glee in my voice. My mother nodded, her laughter morphing into a bright sparkle in her eyes that warmed me. "I did. I thought he would explode. I never felt more alive, seeing him squirm." That satisfaction washed over me again, like a warm shower cascading down my back, enveloping me in safety. It felt good to have been a part of it, the tight knot of fear I had lived with for so long now loosened. Where there was once strife, manipulation, and lies, we had created something beautiful, a space for healing. "You know, I've told your cousins about everything that transpired." They were shocked to hear how he treated us and even agreed to put distance between them and him, my mother added, her voice breaking a bit as she spoke. "For so long, we were painted as the crazy family. But now I think they see how wrong they were." My heart swelled more with each moment we spent together, growing closer and deepening our bond beyond what I had ever imagined. I wanted to know everything she felt, everything she had been holding back for years. "Tell me, Mom, when you saw him so humiliated, what was going through your mind?" I asked gently, my hands still busy amid the vegetables. She paused, her eyes momentarily drifting away as she recalled the moment. It was like watching a weight lift off my chest. I thought, finally, the truth is out, and I felt like I could breathe without being watched, without feeling his eyes on me, judging and belittling me. For the first time in years, I felt free. Her words resonated in the air between us. They were hard-won jewels of truth. "Free," I echoed, savoring the weight of that word. It was like a burst of sunshine breaking through a cloudy sky. As we continued to prepare dinner, the laughter and chatter flowed effortlessly, just like the stories about our childhood. I heard her reminisce about my first day of school, and how she had cried not because she was sad, but because she was proud. "You were so brave, walking into that big school like it was no big deal." "I was terrified you would be sad," she said, patting my back gently as I finished cutting the vegetables. "Instead, you emerged as a leader, always helping others even back then." "Thanks to you," I replied, my heart blooming within me. "You gave me the strength to be who I am today." The conversations danced lightly, wrapping us in an embrace that felt infinite, like a warm quilt on a cold winter night. The earlier weight of anxiety began to lift, replaced by stories full of laughter and love. Every time I caught her eye glinting with happiness in the golden kitchen light, my own heart surged with joy. How was it possible to feel so alive? Simple moments like these, ones I used to take for granted, now held extraordinary power. I watched her spin in circles with a wooden spoon, pretending to host her cooking show. "Welcome to Cooking with Mama, where we add a pinch of love and a dash of resilience," she announced, twirling fantastically. I giggled, unable to contain my delight. "What would you say is our secret ingredient?" I countered, thoroughly enjoying her performance. She leaned in dramatically. "Life. You see, every moment, every frustration and tear mixes into the flavor of our lives. We are stronger together." Her boldness sparked something new in me, a realization that with every challenge thrown at us, we were crafting a beautiful life. Eventually, our laughter settled, and we stood side by side, preparing our meal. The radiant sunlight slipped through the window, casting golden highlights across the kitchen tiles. I let the warmth wash over me, feeling protected and cherished. "Do you think we will ever have a proper family dinner without worrying about him ruining it?" I asked, my voice a little quieter, the shadow of doubt creeping into my heart. "Why not?" she replied firmly, her hands busy arranging and seasoning our dinner. "We won every battle we faced. We took our power back, and now we can choose who we want around our table. No more fear, no more intimidation, just us." She glanced at me, and I could almost see the hope blooming in her eyes. "Just us," I echoed, envisioning our table filled with laughter, food, and family, all the things my uncle tried to take away from us. I could almost hear the rising chorus of voices that brought a sense of belonging back, creating a new tradition built not on manipulation, but on love. Later, as we set the table, adorned with a flowery cloth, I realized how empty our home had felt for so long. But now, it felt like a colorful tapestry woven with the threads of our laughter, shared meals, and moments of joy. All the memories that had faded with time flickered back to life, brighter than ever. "Mom, I cannot thank you enough for being my rock through everything. I am forever grateful," I said, sincerity pouring out of my heart. She turned to me, her face enveloped in warmth. "You have always been my treasure. It is time for both of us to shine." The conviction in her words filled me with a strength I never knew I could possess. A knock on the door startled us, and we exchanged glances. The rhythm in my heart quickened, but we found comfort in each other's light. "Could it be your cousins?" she whispered, excitement dancing in her voice. "Only one way to find out," I said, bolstered by her enthusiasm. I opened the door, and I was greeted by the familiar faces of my cousins, smiling, breathing life back into our home. "Surprise!" they chimed in unison, their cheerful tones flooding the room with welcome energy. In those moments, the shadows that once loomed over us retreated, chased away by the light of joyous connections. They filled the room with laughter and chatter, and for the first time in a long while, I felt my heart burst into bloom. Where my uncle's dominance had cast a long, dark shadow, now the warmth of my family radiated through the air like the best kind of sunlight. As we gathered together, our story unfolded in layers, healing the scars as we bonded over the meal. "What a journey we've had, huh?" one cousin remarked, raising their glass. "To resilience," another shouted. "To the strength of family," my mother added, her voice strong and filled with pride. And at that moment, surrounded by love and laughter, I understood the true treasure we had unearthed: togetherness. I couldn't help but think, as the laughter filled our home, how worth every ounce of preparation and sacrifice it had been to dismantle my uncle's game. Here we were, creating a new legacy built on love and support, nurturing the light that had once flickered dangerously low. The warmth of connection enveloped us, and I knew we would always find strength together in this new dawn.